Well, hi, everybody. I just want to welcome you today for coffee and conversation with my new friend, Mitzi Ann. Mitzi lives in Arkansas. So welcome today, Mitzi. And how's your day been?
Thank you so much. It's been very good. Made some real solid decisions today,
Oh, good.
and listening to the thunder roll outside. So if you hear that, I love thunder rolling. But it's been a great day, and so excited to be on here. Thanks for inviting me to come, Linda, and share my story.
Yeah, I'm just excited to hear all about it. And so, Mitzi, I just want to ask you, what part of your story do you want to start with?
Oh, goodness.
Just growing up years.
Well, so I'm a military brat. My dad retired Air Force. We never moved overseas, but we moved all over the United States. If we lived somewhere for 2 years, that was good. So I lived in 8 different states before I was 11. And that's what landed us here in Arkansas.
That's tough moving around like that as a kid.
It was. Yes.
Yeah. So was there any significant things that happened when you were growing up?
Yes. So I always tell people that, I was raised in the 60s. I'm a 70s teenager, 60s young kid. I was not raised up in church. My parents raised me according to the Dr. Spock theory. And if anyone is familiar with that theory, the theory was, let your kids express themselves, they'll find themselves. And it's not a very wise thing to do. So I didn't have boundaries.
Okay.
And I didn't even know what they were till I was in my early 50s. And I was able to express myself, which, was not a good thing. I think some of the other...
That would have been in the early 70s then that you're expressing yourself.
Yes. Yes. But even in the 60s, when I was 5, I was a really good reader. I read very well. So I never went into kindergarten. So I went into first grade at age 5 because I read so well. And I discovered my dad's Playboy magazines when I was 6, 7 years old. And so I didn't just look at the pictures. I read those stories, and those stories are like horrible. But as a child, I'm just like, I'm just reading. Most of it I didn't even understand. I will tell you though, however, that's why we need to watch our eyes and our ears and what we feed off of. I had some really crazy dreams from those magazines as a child that I didn't understand. And yet
that would have given you a real warped sense of what was normal or what was reality.
Very warped sense of my womanness, my femininity. And because I wasn't raised by parents that talked to me, there were never no conversations. There was no counseling. There was no guidance. So yes, so those things trained me up. And that's not a good thing. And I was one of those girls in the 60s and 70s with those hot pants, that barely covered anything, and the halter tops, and but I didn't know, like seriously, I was not putting them on to be like nowadays. Those clothes are worn for a specific reason. But really back in the 60s and the early 70s, there was like this, be free, don't be bound, and it's what my mom bought me, and it's what I wore.
And you would have been young. You would have been...
I was very young. Yeah, I was not even a teenager. Yeah, I was. Right. 11, 12, 13. Yeah. Teens. Yeah. Became mama at an early age, and I quit dressing like that.
So you went into high school.
Yes, I started high school when I was 16, my senior year when I was 16, graduated at 17. And prior to my senior year, I I met the Lord. But my sophomore year was very hard, very, very, very hard. I had a lot of sexual abuse.
Mm.
Lots of sexual abuse happened to me.
It was just
My
in like dates or
no, my older brother was in a gang, and
okay.
we call it a gang. You know, we think of gangs being like in the inner cities, but you know, you get a group of, pardon my mouth, but I just call them badass white boys together that have just really mean hearts and
Mhm.
no empathy. Yeah, and their pastime was to, and I love my brother now. So let me just put that here. My older brother and I are building a relationship, and I just really honor him for that. But back then, so the gang leader would come and they would all come in to my house, and he would spend the night. And so he was my first experience of being raped repeatedly. And because I think I told you earlier before we got on, my older brother would hurt me a lot when I was little, and I would go tell her, and she would say, well, if you wouldn't do this, then he wouldn't do that.
Right.
And it was just
Yeah.
like, oh, we didn't talk about anything anyways. And so I was just, so I think I always hoped that they would hear it. But anyways, so when we moved away from that house and moved off of base, it stopped. But there were other situations. I could go into a lot, but there was just multiple. And I literally learned how to just tomorrow's a new day, put on a smile, because I was always a fun, like, oh, let's have fun. And I just learned I learned some really good survival skills and how to
Okay.
get by.
So you had survival, you wore a mask, pretend.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. I
Did
was
you,
dying inside.
yeah. So did you respond any other way, react any other way? Some
Yeah.
people like withdraw and isolate, and some people, you're saying you were happy but that was the mask.
Yeah, that was my mask out, in public. And I started doing a lot of drugs at 13. And it got to the point where if I wasn't high on something, I didn't feel normal. Like I didn't know how to function without having, something going on, whether it was smoking pot or doing acid or drinking mushrooms or snorting. It's like, yeah, I'll do that. Sure. I
You're
didn't know
not,
that I was self-medicating.
yeah, you're numbing.
Totally numbing. I
Right,
wasn't
yeah.
aware of that. I just, once again, I didn't have any training or counseling or, anything from my parents. So I don't know. It was just a normal thing for me. Yeah. I do remember though coming home and they're just being withdrawn, and because if there's no conversations in your home, you literally go to your bedroom. I had free range to the kitchen, so I don't remember dinners at the table. So yeah, I just learned how to do that.
Yeah.
I was allowed to have marijuana posters, all whatever I wanted to put on my walls could go on my walls. Because remember, I was allowed to express myself, and I just played.
You did. You did express
I
yourself.
didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I met Jesus.
Okay.
Woo.
So, and you were 16, you said, when you met Jesus?
Mhm.
Okay. So you finished high school then?
I did.
And were you still doing all these drugs?
No, in my senior year, I did no drugs at all. I met the Lord, and I always say that when I met Jesus, I met love for the first time. And 1 John 4:8 is one of my favorite scripture verses. God is love, and I met love. And the thing about that is that I really want to say to other believers is that just because I got saved, because I met love, doesn't mean that all that stuff was addressed. It was so suppressed, because I was still I was a Jesus freak, on fire. and loved that. I could not tell people about Jesus. And it was never like, you need to. It was always like, oh my gosh, if you just knew what I knew, I was so excited. Like, I just want you to understand that he's, he loves you. And then so I started going to this one church, and I met this one guy there. He was a Bible study teacher, and we started dating. He was 7 years older than me. I started seeing things about him that were not like good. He had a really bad temper, and I actually went to break off the marriage, and
so you got engaged to this guy.
We got engaged. I was 16 when I got engaged. No, I turned 16 in October, or 17 in October. I was 17 when I got engaged. I was still in high school, and I went to break up with him, and that's where I think for the first time that I realized that I just reverted back to my freezing mode, because he, went into, you can't do that, you can't. And so I married him. I graduated in May from high school, got married in June, and pregnant in July.
Wow.
And it was an extremely abusive marriage. So I was a battered young wife, and had another child. And in that marriage too, and I have no more shame over sharing this, but after a year of, because mind you, I had my little boy, and the abuse just kept getting worse and worse. I had an affair, and I say that because I think there's a lot of people, a lot of women, I speak to women that have extramarital affairs, and they're in such shame over it that they don't talk about it. They can't talk about it. And so they don't get the healing that's there for them to have. And I carried a lot of shame for that for a lot of years. So, that messed me up. I mean, it's like one thing after the other, just messing me up. And after he started threatening to take all our lives, a friend actually came and moved me out. So I made the decision to live and protect my children. I couldn't protect me, but oh, those babies.
Yep. So you had 2 children.
Yeah.
With this guy. Okay. And did you get married again?
Oh, yes. Yeah. That's my story. Woman at the well here. Yeah. After I divorced the first time, I was 17, 18. So probably wasn't even not married for, was probably single for another year. Had a girlfriend move in with me. We turned 21, started going to the clubs, and I literally was carrying such shame that I ran from God, and we started doing the club scene. And I met a guy that's very, much in pursuit of me. And yeah, he was a cocaine dealer, and I started doing cocaine with him. And you look back and I look back now, all the things I've learned is I understand now what grooming process looks like. And that's why I do a lot of teaching people about red flags. And there was so much grooming there for the purpose of, having me. He was 15 years older than me.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, and at this point you were 21?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he would have been like 35 or 36 or something.
35. Mm-hmm. He was 35. Yes. And he would always say, when are you going to marry me and move up to the mountains, and the Ozark Mountains of Arkansas? And one day I said, let's do it. And we got married. I led him to the Lord. I always think, well, I led him to the Lord. There's a soul in, one more soul in the kingdom. So we moved up there, raised our kids. It was such a great place to raise kids. We actually had 2 children. So now I had 4. Never are they referred to as half brother and sister. They are brother and sister. Like,
okay. That
word half is just not allowed in our, and they don't see each other. Like when someone says, "Oh, is that your half sister?" They're like, "No, that's my sister," he was not physically abusive, but he was um, mentally and emotionally abusive, and was, constantly telling me he wants a divorce, and
Controlling and
very
manipulative.
controlling. Yeah. And, there was times I look back and I think, oh my gosh, I really tried. Wish I had my pictures handy, but, it's like there's all this hard stuff going on. And yet I have beautiful memories. Like we have fun memories of, what we did with the kids. But I literally was, once again, just dying inside, and I just becoming someone that I didn't want to be. So got out of that marriage after 12, I was with him for 12 years.
Okay.
Yeah. And then wasn't even another year again, I married number 3. And this guy wasn't abusive. I just married someone because my girlfriend said it well to me the other day. I live here with her and her husband, and she says, Mitzi, you have what happened to you was you were like so craving love, like real love, that like if someone, was like nice to you, you're like, I was just like, so I didn't understand. I had no emotional intelligence. I had no boundaries. And those are 2 major shifts and turning points in my life when the Lord took me through them, because he did. And I would just like, oh my gosh, someone be nice to me. And that didn't work out. And yeah, marriage number 4 was very so remember, I'm just going to say this because this has to do with soul ties. Soul ties are real. The guy I had an affair with in my first marriage that I shared with you, we came across each other's path again after this divorce number 3.
Okay.
And all those years, I thought he really loved me. And boy, I could write a book on that. Like, he didn't love me. I was easily used. And I am not ashamed to say that, because of where just where I was. I am not that girl anymore.
But he was disguised. He was disguised as love.
Very disguised as love. And I couldn't get him out of my heart. Like I think about him all the time. If I happened to come back into the town where he lived, where my parents live, and I saw him, my heart would be like, oh my gosh. I couldn't breathe. I just, the butterflies. And I used to dream about what it'd be like for him to ask me to marry him. And so we started talking to each other, and he used to come up where I live and go canoeing. And one time he asked me if I wanted to go canoeing with him. I couldn't, because I had to work. So I shuttled him. Anyone that knows what it means to shuttle, I put his truck at where he was going to come out and took him to the beginning so I could put the canoe in. I got off work early that day, and I thought, I'm going to walk up the creek and I'm going to surprise him, because at some point his canoe is going to come down and I'll be walking up the creek. So I thought, that's really smart. It's a hot day, summer day in June. And I'm going up the creek. Parts of it, I'm only 5'1", so I'm swimming, and I'm in the Ozark Mountains, this creek in the Ozark Mountains, and there's no getting out of it unless you want to walk in the woods. This storm comes out from nowhere, like rolls in, black clouds, thunder, lightning. I'm walking up this creek into the storm. It's coming towards me. I didn't want to turn around because it'd be falling. So I'm like, what? I'm panicking because I got a fishing pole, which to me was now a lightning rod.
Really? Yeah.
And I'm just like, now I can think of it as like water moccasins stirring up in the storm. And I said, God, I need you to show me what it means that you are my rock and my fortress and my deliverer right now, because I don't want to panic, because this was real.
Yeah.
And he took me through the most amazing vision of how he is my rock, and then my fortress, and then my deliverer. It was amazing. So then I'm just like, peace, total peace. I thought if there's cameras in the woods, they probably think I'm crazy. This girl, no storm, like yeah, praise you, just praising God. And finally the storm passed and I saw him in the canoe and he had no emotion. And the Lord said to me, being with him is going to be like this storm. Do you want that? And I didn't answer God. My behavior did though. Because remember, this was a soul hook in me for so many years. And guess what Mitzi wanted?
Yeah.
He wanted that guy because he loves me. I love him. We're going to, and a year into our marriage, it was like, oh my gosh, what have I done? What have I done? What have I done? So I married a covert narcissistic man. I married my mother all over again. And I asked the Lord to teach me about love. And I went on an 11-day fasting and praying. I was weeping and I said, God, teach me about love. And he said, do you remember the storm? And I'm like, yes, I do. I'm so sorry. I was crying. And he says, no, do you remember what I showed you in that storm? And I said, yes, that you're my rock and my fortress and my deliverer. And he said, I still am.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of an incredible, deep, deep, deep healing work. I learned about soul ties. I learned that I was trying to gain my affection by this broken man, right? Remember Adam and Eve had to come out of the garden space, right? Mm-hmm. And Eve's curse was that her affection would be towards her husband. And I asked God, I'm like, well, as opposed to who? And he said, me.
Yeah.
Because in the garden, her eyes, when she first opened her eyes, she was looking at love, right? Yep. And so now they're outside the garden and this man that used to walk with God is now getting cut by thorns. And I mean, his whole life is wrecked too, right? He's got his own trauma going on. Yeah. And God was just teaching me, if you can come back into the garden with me, if you choose to stay out and you choose to stay here, you're desperately trying to get affection from a broken man and he doesn't have it to give you.
Yeah.
And so that was a really huge training process for me. And then I went into boundaries. Whoop, can't see it because of my background. Yeah. But boundaries, emotional intelligence. I became a holy yoga instructor. I learned about the body keeps the score. I realized that, oh my gosh, all those years, I wasn't fighting or running away. I was freezing and I never understood that. I told a pastor one time, pastor's wife, my story, and her response was like, oh. And I say this not to disrespect the church or people, but people are people.
Yeah.
People are people. And if a person in a position, they got their own stuff to come through too. But when she said to me, I can understand someone getting raped once and maybe twice, but more than that. And I just always thought, oh my God, yeah, what's wrong with me? And when I learned through that training that the body keeps the score and that there's more than just fight or flight, there's fight, flight, freeze, or submit. And it was life-changing to me. And so the Lord is just continuing to peel off these layers of my story. And now I get to bring it to other people to, just to show them, like, I know what it's like to be a survivor and just get by in life.
Yeah.
Really good at it.
and I just want to say at this point that if anybody's listening that has been violated or raped or groomed, or they feel like they've been groomed, it's just talk to somebody. Just tell somebody, because if we're hiding it, then the enemy works in the dark. Mm-hmm. So, it's going to be the shame and the condemnation that we're feeling. So just by telling somebody and bringing it into the light, that's where the healing can start. And it'll be a process. And if it feels like judgment that you're receiving when you do tell somebody different and go to somebody different. Exactly. It's not the right person. You will find somebody that is safe to talk to.
Yeah.
And that's where your healing will start. Yeah.
Amen. Thank you for saying that. And I'm available too. It is my passion, and I get to, and I have come alongside, counseled, mentored many, going through it. And it's a great joy. It is
Yeah.
just a great joy. And I have said, yes, Lord. Romans 8:28 is real, that all things work together for good to them that love the Lord, the called according to his purpose. Now, do I wish it on anyone? No, but we live in a fallen world. Those things happen. But if we give it to the Lord, right, that great exchange, I
Yes.
give him all my ashes. He gives me this crown of beauty that says, you belong to me.
Mm-hmm.
The oil of joy in exchange for my mourning. It's not like you get right and then come to me. It's like, oh, honey, give it all to me. I've got some really good stuff for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've had some tests in your life. Yes. And so what's the big lesson that you would say that you've learned that you'd want to share with other people?
Oh, so good. First of all, you can't do it alone. And, like you said, I think it's very important to understand, because I tried to do it alone. I tried to put on that happy face and wear that mask, and I'm good. I actually chose to get a counselor, a therapist, because I thought, it's not a bad thing. It's just
not
someone to talk to. And she can give me some feedback about, a good example is, I was saying some things and she says, do you know that's cognitive dissonance, don't you? And I'm like, I don't even know what that word is. And cognitive dissonance is when you have this complete opposite thoughts in your mind. For example, I would say, yes, well, he beat me really bad, but he's a really nice person. Like he really has great qualities. Or, I would say, yeah, they just, really did this to me or did that to me. But they're really got, like, if you just, and I didn't understand that is just so not a healthy thing. I couldn't just say I was abused. Leave it there, and I had cognitive dissonance even in myself. Like, even I just really struggled with, oh, but you did this and you did that. Oh, but my heart, like I didn't mean to, you know what I mean? Just that real struggle inside myself. So it would just be understand, don't do it alone. You can't do it alone.
Right.
Boundaries, learning boundaries, what that looks like. Creating healthy boundaries does not mean that you're mean.
No.
It doesn't mean that you can put, words in there. It doesn't mean anything. And I tell you what you will experience if you are a person that's never had boundaries and you start creating these healthy boundaries. Unhealthy people aren't going to like that. They're going to go, you're changing. Yeah. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
And, and then your first response might be to go, oh my gosh, I guess I am being, mean and negative or whatever. And that's a red flag. If you're creating this nice,
the wrong people the people that need you,
people are they are not going to like your boundaries, and they will push you and test you to remove those boundaries. The right people are going to go, good for you. Awesome. I'm just noticing all this wonderful change. Emotional intelligence is a huge one. I did not understand what emotional intelligence was. I couldn't self-regulate. So there's this self-regulating, like, there was a time where, like, if I could get triggered really easy. My marriage number 4 was a gaslighter. He was such a good gaslighter, and I didn't understand that. And I would just rage, and I used to hurt myself. Literally, I would beat myself up. And that was another avenue that we could go down, but we won't. But I used to hurt myself. And I remember the day and that was torment. I was a lot of torment in that. I remember the day when I woke up and it was like, it's gone, and never, ever, ever even struggle with that ever at all. And so this learning emotional intelligence, like, what that person is saying isn't about me, it's about them.
Right. Yeah. Right.
But boy, that was really hard at first because I thought, well, if I'll change, if I'll get better, then we can have something. When the truth is, it ain't about you. It's just about them, and and just staying grounded, just really locking arms with a good community of people that are like-minded. And for me, I mean, I love everybody. I see beauty in everybody, and I really mean that. Now, do I want to hang out with everybody? No, not everyone is safe for me to hang out with, but I see value and beauty in everybody. But just really find that community, and my grounding is in the Lord Jesus Christ. He is why I have come through all of this, and I can't say it any other way.
Yeah.
So I give him all the glory. And
I think that like we're created with a part of us that just is searching for love,
yes.
But we don't realize we're searching for him.
Yes, exactly. 100%. Yeah.
So that's where we will find our peace in the storm. Yeah.
Amen. Amen, Linda.
Yeah, that does work with your story.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for sharing, Mitzi. I think you've encouraged a lot of women today, just to open up and be real, and it's okay. Just find somebody safe to talk to. I remember being in a Bible study one time. There was 5 of us and 5 different ages, completely 5 different backgrounds, and everyone had been raped. So we have no idea who's standing beside us. We have no idea what their experiences are. We really think we really need to guard any kind of judgment of how people behave or speak. And just, God, that was an awakening for me, just to look around the room and like, wow, these are people in the church. So that's why I think it's really important to share this message, that find somebody to talk to and get some healing. Find the one who is the healer.
Yeah. I like that you said that. Thank you for saying that. We can't judge anybody. We can't judge them as having a perfect life because of looks like they got all together, or
we have no idea what's behind the makeup, what's behind the designer clothes, or whatever, who's driving the car, whoever. We don't know what someone else's life has been like. So
So well, I love what you're doing, giving people a space to tell their story. And it's just powerful, whatever the story is. I think you had shared that with me. It could be about, their experience hang gliding or whatever it is, I love that. And thank you for letting me share mine.
Well, looking forward to hearing some more.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you. And we'll talk to you again.
All right.
Thanks, Mitzi.
Bye.